Well, it's officially December 1st, which means we can change the lights over here, make it more festive. That's like the most you'll get out of me for this. But there was an update to a story that happened this week, and I wanted to basically go back to it before we close out here on Friday, because it does have to do with Microsoft and Xbox and all the talk about them going third party after Tim Stewart, is the CFO at Xbox, talked about getting Game Pass on all different platforms, which did technically, according to him, include Nintendo and PlayStation, two companies that they may have viewed as competitors in the past. Well, Phil Spencer, in a recent interview that went up actually today, decided to respond to that and made it pretty clear where they stand on the idea of Game Pass going to these other platforms. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. So this was an interview that was done by Jez Corden over on Windows Central, and when asked about the idea of Game Pass making its way to the Switch or the PlayStation 5, he said, "I'll start by saying we have no plans to bring Game Pass to PlayStation or Nintendo. It's not in our plans, but I think you hit on the right point of what it means to own an Xbox. The thing I want to be focused on is how do we continue to innovate for people who've made the commitment to our hardware platform, and how do we continue to make sure that they feel great about their investment in what we've built. I'm obviously going to have my own point of view on our hardware, but I think our hardware teams did a great job with the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S this generation, giving value and performance in the hardware line. I will comment, though, and say, yeah, it's at this point, looking at the Xbox Series S, X, and I'll even say the PlayStation 5, I feel like this is probably the best generation in terms of engineered hardware. I mean, how many people really talk about having significant issues with their systems now versus back with something like the Red Ring or the PS2 not reading discs? That was very, very common. It's not really that significant this generation, and we don't even really talk about fan speed or noise like we did back with the PS3, the Xbox 360, the PS4. So yeah, I think in this case, for all the systems pretty much now, we're in a pretty good spot overall. When I think about investments in things like Game Pass and Xbox Cloud Gaming, cross-play, cross-save, ID at Xbox, all of these things, I want us to continue to innovate so people on our console feel like we're making investments in console that matches their commitment they're making to us. Game Pass was one of the things, that over the last 5 years we built and we continue to grow. It's on PC, it's on cloud, it's an important part of the Xbox console identity, and I think it will continue to be that. And we will continue to look at future ways for us to innovate across our game portfolio and our platform. So I've kind of discussed this multiple times in the past, and I feel like it's just kind of the way that we've pretty much viewed games since the start. I mean, really, since you could say the Atari stuff, but like really when it was Nintendo versus Sega back in the late 80s, early 90s, and then Sony came in and Microsoft came in 2001. It's always been about exclusivity for games specifically, especially ones that are made by first parties, as that's basically what's kept Nintendo in the game this entire time. They might miss out on a big third-party game like a Call of Duty, for example, although that seems to be rectified here soon, according to at least deals they've signed. But you get the idea. Big third-party games that come out but don't make their way to Nintendo's system doesn't matter as much because their first-party games that are exclusive hold the entire operation up, right? In this case, though, for Microsoft, they certainly look at this more as really how their core company is, which is a software business first, their corporation. And yes, they're more commercial than consumer, as they will typically work for things like cloud infrastructure and all kinds of deals with large companies. That's where a lot of their revenue comes from. But they also want to be consumer facing, and that's one of the reasons the Xbox line itself exists. It's pretty much a direct line to the consumer, not like, okay, we have to go commercial to a business that then also works with employees who are consumers as well. So it's different from everything else that Microsoft's really done this entire way, right? Like even back in 2001 when the Xbox came out, that was a big point that was made, is like Microsoft does Office. What are they doing with a video game system? So in this instance, it makes sense that Game Pass is the exclusive. I mean, he says it right here that that Game Pass is an important part of the Xbox console identity. So if you buy an Xbox, Game Pass is there, and it's not on PlayStation. It's not on the Nintendo Switch. In fact, if Microsoft is trying to continue on with the Xbox console, like I believe they will, at least throughout the next generation, and that'll probably place us, I believe, in like 2035. Who knows what gaming will look like at that time? I mean, it could be vastly different. We might not have any systems at all. It could be all cloud-based for all we know, although based on Comcast's roadmap, we'll see about that one. However, Game Pass is kind of the thing that people need to, I guess, just reevaluate their viewpoint in gaming, as that's the exclusive, not necessarily individual titles, because Microsoft's going to look to put software at full price, I feel like, on more and more systems. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. It sounds weird now. I wouldn't be shocked if in 5 years we look back and go, oh, wow, Halo is on the PlayStation. That is such a weird thing to see, but who knows? Maybe in 5 years, it'll have been years in the making, and it'll just be like a regular thing. But that's kind of where I'm viewing this now, and that does make sense from their point of view, as Satya Nadella has also mentioned that he's not really a fan of the game exclusivity part of the video game industry, because, I mean, think about it, in his mind, he's trying to make high margin revenue, and you do that by selling just software outright. As was mentioned by Tim Stewart, Call of Duty has become high margin for them because it is first party, although I will admit it's going to cost quite a bit of money to make these Call of Duty games going forward, so you could argue one way or the other with that, but we know that they had to make deals with Activision to keep Call of Duty going on the Xbox, and it was like, I think it's like 20% instead of 30% or something like that, which a smaller percentage of a big number is still a big number, right? But that I think is the part that's tripping a lot of people up, especially people who have been in games for a long time. It's just Microsoft is trying something completely different, and we still don't know if it's necessarily going to work out in the long run. But the big advantage Microsoft has is the backing to attempt this. Who knows? It might work out, and that sets the new precedent where subscription services is like the way to go. At least for now, Nintendo seems pretty comfortable with what they're doing. Sony is the one who just seems like half in, half out on the entire idea. And while Phil Spencer mentions we don't have any plans of putting Game Pass on PlayStation or Nintendo, I also don't necessarily think that Sony or Nintendo would be open arms like, yeah, come on, bring Game Pass to the platform, because I think even they are kind of observing how all this shakes out when it comes to sales and having a subscription service where your very expensive developed games go in day one. These other companies aren't Microsoft. They can't necessarily handle that kind of the potential loss that could bring if it doesn't work. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, as it does appear Phil Spencer has made this very clear. No, they're not going third party, and they're not, at least now, looking into having Game Pass put on Nintendo's system with the Switch or Sony with the PlayStation 5. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.